All in favor of electing Assembly Member Anthony Rendon as the 70th Speaker of the California State Assembly, please signify by saying aye. Aye.
Speaker-elect Rendon, thanks so much for talking to us.
Thank you.
People outside of your district may not know you as well as they do down in Los Angeles. What should people know about you? Who are you?
Grew up in Southern California. I'm no stranger to the Bay Area, though. I lived in San Francisco for a couple of years. Worked in Oakland. I'm a native son of California. Went to the state's community college system, the Cal State system, UC system. So I'm somebody who knows California, has really benefited from the state's institutions.
Looking at your bio, and by your own admission, you were not exactly a fast starter in high school.
Is
that fair to say?
Absolutely.
I think I read that your grade point average in high school was 0.83. That was you saying that.
Yeah. Right.
So what happened?
I was not a very engaged student. I didn't grow up in a community where the schools were all that great, to be honest. I grew up in a community where I don't think education was valued that highly. I didn't know a lot of people when I graduated who went to college. I used to take the bus past a community college every morning, 8 a.m. after working the graveyard shift. And I'd look out and I'd see the kids going into school, and tuition was $5 a semester back then, the community college system. It's a very, very different reality. So I benefited from that.
So what was it that shifted, or who was it that got you motivated to start thinking about college and getting serious about education?
I think it was a couple of things. I had an older sister who did go to college. She was the first in our family to go to college, so she certainly played a significant role. When I was 19, 20 years old, I'd never read a book in my life, cover to cover. And I remember she kept putting a copy of Dostoevsky's Brothers Karamazov. She put it in my room. I saw it, I didn't know what it was just on my desk. And the next day she moved it to my nightstand, and it was getting closer and closer. And the next day it was on top of my pillow, and I thought I better pick this up and read it because obviously she's trying to send me a message. So it was that type of sort of positive role model that had an impact.
So Dostoevsky was the very first book you've read? That's a little intimidating.
Brothers K, yeah, it was the interesting thing was it turned out it was actually an abridged version of that book. So she made me read the complete version the next year.
The ayes have it.
What have you learned growing up in a working class family that you're going to take with you in this new job as Speaker?
The job of being an assembly member, the job of being a legislator can be very abstract. We deal in huge and we deal with programs, not with people. We deal with in terms of billions of dollars. To have those sort of real life experiences, not only in my family growing up, but also running nonprofit organizations for 20 years. So to be able to hearken back to those memories, to those families that we served, is something that's really valuable to me, I think.
You are taking over as Speaker after years and years of a revolving door of speakerships because of term limits. You could be around for quite a while. So what's on your short list of things to accomplish?
Certainly addressing poverty and sort of various mechanisms for dealing with poverty. It's something that, as a Democrat, I believe we haven't done a good job of talking about at all, let alone dealing with. So I'm going to look at things like the minimum wage is something that's very important to me. Healthcare is something that's very important to me. Addressing the housing crisis is very important to me as well. Specific to the minimum wage, more than half of California is already at $15 because of various local ordinances. It just doesn't seem fair to some communities that they pay higher wages than others. So if anything, getting the entire state to $15 an hour is just sort of something that'll level the playing field for businesses.
Although if you're a business in Fresno, you would say, well, my workers don't have the same cost of living as, say, your constituents do in Southern California. Should there be a kind of regionally different minimum wages?
Those who represent Fresno, those who represent Bakersfield have made those arguments, so it's certainly something we're going to look at. We're not close to the idea at all.
And when you're a legislator, there are always people with lots of money, lobbyists, business interests, trying to distract you from some of those goals and trying to get you to think about issues the way they want you to.
Yep.
How are you going to keep your eye on the ball?
I represent 9 cities. I represent the city of Linwood, which a couple of years ago had the second highest unemployment rate in the country, just behind Pontiac, Michigan. So if you keep focusing back, not on the lobbyists who are in your office, but on the people back in the district, I think that's who we're here to serve.
So when you become Speaker, both leaders in the legislature, you and Kevin De Leon, the Senate President Pro Tem, are going to be Latino men from Southern California. What's the significance of that?
It's significant because it's the first time it's happened. The second question we should be asking is it good? And Kevin and I are people who work with every caucus. We're people who work with diverse communities.
There are some folks up north who might think their interests aren't going to be addressed by two leaders from Southern California. What would you say to them?
The water bond is a perfect example of that. If there's anything in California that divides us in any way, but particularly north-south, it's the issue of water. People kept saying there's no way you're going to be able to get a water bond through. I authored the water bond. We worked on it for 18 months, and we were able to get it through.
The Latino caucus has grown tremendously in the past 20 years. It's really eclipsed the African American caucus, and there's some tension between those two groups in the legislature and in Congress as well in California. What are your thoughts about that?
Well, it's interesting. There was a story recently in the Sacramento Bee where it said ethnic tension ripping apart the assembly. And it was a picture of me hugging an African-American man who I've endorsed for Congress, who's endorsed me in every single office I've ever run for. I think a lot of that is overplayed. Thank you again for the honor you have given me.
You're becoming speaker at a time when there's a lot of anger among voters. We hear it in the presidential election. We've seen it at the convention here in San Jose. People want bankers to go to jail and that kind of thing. What can you say to those folks that you're going to be looking out for them as well, the people who feel left out?
So I think a lot of those questions, a lot of the issues relating to anger, totally understood, totally understandable. It's our job to address those through oversight and through legislation.
And last question, what do you do for fun?
What I do for fun, I'm a big runner. I like to listen to music. I love art. My first job was in a contemporary art museum, and I love to read.
What kind of music do you like?
Music, I like punk.
Punk, you're like a Renaissance man.
Yeah, I have various interests.
Speaker-elect Rendon, thank you so much.
I appreciate it. Thanks so much.